of promises made this election cycle, and it's borderline impossible to keep up with all of them, so I'm going to do it for you. In this video, we're going to go through every policy made by Labour, the Coalition, and the Greens, and see how they actually stack up. Keep in mind, I am biased towards Labour, but that's just because their election promises from 2022 aged like fine wine. That being said, I have tried to ground my ranking in the best available evidence. The tier list I'm going to be using is relatively arbitrary. First, is it actually good for the country? 2, is it reasonably attainable? And 3, what are the overall vibes the policy gives? It's pretty subjective. I haven't thought that much about it. Don't take it too seriously. Play along or don't. Entirely up to you. I have a lot to get through. I can't spend as much time on every policy as I want to, but go check out my other YouTube videos or my TikToks. I've probably talked about a policy more in depth there. I'm going to be going very quickly because there's so much to talk about. This is every 2025 Australian election policy ranked. Starting with health policy, for Labour, funding is the name of the game. $8.5 billion to increase the Medicare rebates by 12.5% for GPs who solely bulk bill, with the hope that 9 in 10 GPs are bulk billing by 2030. Scholarships and training for nurses and GPs, as well as huge increases into research and support for women's health and lower medicine costs. Will it work? Senator David Pocock ran the numbers, and even with increased rebates, GPs would still be making less than they do now, so the incentives aren't perfect. Look, Labour's got a good track record with their medical promises and have already frozen the cost of PBS scripts. Starting off strong, I'm going to put this in A tier. It's change that's needed. The evidence doesn't fully back it up, but Labour's heading in the right direction and the vibes feel pretty good. Liberals matched the $8.5 billion in funding, plus an extra $400 million to support junior doctors who want to be GPs. Liberals gave a press release supporting funding for women's health, but they've also got a history of cutting and fighting against Medicare. I'm going to put this in B tier. I think they'll do most of it, but I don't think they'll go nearly as far as Labour would. The Greens want to add a significant amount to Medicare. All of it would be amazing to have. The vibes are immaculate. If I could snap my fingers and make a policy happen tomorrow, it's the Greens' Medicare policies. Do I trust they would try and do it? Definitely. Do I think they can actually do it? Just no chance of it happening. One of the biggest ways the Greens want to pay for so many of their policies is making corporations pay their fair share in tax, and at the end of the day, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But that isn't a plan, that's a goal, and until you reach your goal, you couldn't afford to pay for the other policies you care about. Tax policy is boring. The vast majority of you don't want to listen to me explain the loopholes, but it's not as simple as make them pay. Overall, the Greens policy is high on vibes, right direction, but practically speaking, I don't think they could get it through. I'm going to give it a B tier because the easier things they definitely could get through and they would try and do it. Bribery is the name of the game for the major parties when it comes to the cost of living. Labour promised $150 of energy bills, reducing the second lowest tax bracket by 1% each year for 2 years, the PBS cuts, and taking 20% off your student debt. As I was making this video, Labour also announced an instant $1,000 tax write-off without receipts being required, as well as cutting out lenders' mortgage insurance for first-time home buyers and allowing buyers to put down only 5% for properties under a certain price limit. Labour also announced it would extend a $20,000 tax write-off for businesses that bought new tools and upgrade their equipment. The vibes chill. Does it meaningfully help the cost of living? Not really. Money off bills is nice. The tax cuts work out to be about $268 for the first year and $536 the year after. And 20% off student debt is sick, but it doesn't actually reduce the cost of education though, or solve bracket creep. The changes to lenders' mortgage insurance, the 5% deposits, and the $1,000 as a tax write-off does help people, but at the end of the day, this doesn't stop house prices continuing to increase, or the fact that small businesses are getting less business from consumers because the economy's in a rough shape. Vibes are amazing. Practically, it's weak in the long term. B tier. Liberals want a 25% reduction in the fuel excise, claiming they'll save you $14 a week. They didn't contest the energy rebate or the PBS changes, and also will be offering small businesses a $20,000 tax deduction for business-related meal expenses. Sadly, the $14 a week is a lie. It's actually $6, $8 at best. I have a video coming out about it next week. Check it out if you're interested. Energy and PBS is Labour's policy, and the $20,000 deduction seems like it's begging to be abused. I'll let you decide if that's actually a pro rather than a con for small businesses. The vibes are, I don't think practically it's going to do much, and I have a feeling this $20,000 is going to be reduced pretty quickly. C tier. The Greens plan to tackle the cost of living through a wide variety of policies that we'll talk about individually in more detail. Key points are limiting the cost of public transport to 50 cents, lifting the pension, raising Centrelink, subsidizing solar and batteries. All pretty awesome policies. They do still rely on that corporate tax issue being fixed, but I think they would be able to get the smaller things done. I'm going to put it B tier below Labour. Let's go visit housing. The coalition is spending $5 billion in hopes of speeding up infrastructure and unlocking 500,000 new homes. They also want to freeze the National Construction Code for 10 years. That's the code that sets the minimum requirements for construction and is meant to be reviewed every 3 years. Dutton's promised to ban foreign investment and temporary residents from buying an existing home for 2 years, wants young Aussies to be able to take up to $50,000 from their super to spend on housing, and plans to eliminate Labour's Housing Australia Future Fund. To start with, the $5 billion will not unlock 500,000 new homes. We already spend tens of billions on infrastructure. An extra $1 billion each year for 5 years will not double the number of dwellings under construction. Freezing the NCC obviously hurts consumers, considering that code does things like create stronger provisions that prevent condensation, mold, leaks, and improve structural resilience. Foreign investment only makes up 1% of houses bought and doesn't even stop new homes being bought. Young Aussies raiding their super robs them of retirement income and actually would drive up the cost of housing. I've done a whole video on it, check it out. Scrapping the future fund obviously removes future generations' ability to use it and ignores the fact that other such similar funds exist and are performing well. All in all, doesn't actually help, scapegoats immigrants, vibes suck, F tier. Labour hopped on the immigration scapegoat train, also banning foreign investment. They increased the limit to their help to buy scheme, which is when the government takes a share of your property so you can buy it with a lower deposit, and Labour will continue to use the HAF funds to build social and affordable housing. The foreign investment is a wash. The help to buy scheme does have some major issues, such as the fact that if you exceed the income threshold, you may have to immediately buy out the government share, and the HAF is performing decently well, but it isn't where it needs to be. Right idea, good vibes, execution could use a lot of work, B tier. The Greens want government handouts to property investors to stop and renters to gain more rights through protection authorities and new laws. When it comes to things like banning or limiting rent increases, they sound awesome in theory, they do offer protection, but they also decrease the overall supply and investment in the market. At the same time, without them, people become homeless. These types of policies need to be paired with dramatic increases to social and affordable housing, which is hard to do. Phasing out negative gearing is exceptionally important in my opinion. However, both times it was taken to an election, Labour lost. It's politically popular, and even with a minority government, they wouldn't be able to change that. Overall, I'm going to put Greens in the B tier just below Labour. I think their heart's in the right space. I think they're moving the country in a good direction, but they're not going to be able to do the things they actually say they can. That being said, they would definitely try and do them. Now to climate and energy, where there is big division between the parties. Labour's continuing their commitment to net zero by 2050 and 82% renewables by 2030. Labour also plans to continue the Rewiring the Nation project, which is preparing the grid for renewables. Unfortunately, we are only at 40% renewables, and Labour has allowed certain projects that increase emissions to continue. Yes, we do need fossil fuels and gas whilst transitioning to renewables, but we're also giving huge handouts to coal and gas giants. Right idea, right direction, execution needs a lot of work, B tier. Dutton wants to take us to nuclear utopia with 7 power plants. He's also expanding gas infrastructure and wants to keep 20% for the domestic market. He also plans to eliminate the Rewiring the Nation Fund and defund the Environmental Defender's Office, which does exactly what it sounds like. Dutton's nuclear policy is a fantasy. It costs more than other forms of energy, would ruin the 2050 target, and wouldn't even be up and running until the 2040s. I've got a whole video on it, check it out. Expanding gas destroys our target, removing the funding from the Environmental Defender's Office is as bad as it sounds, and cutting the Rewiring the Nation Fund doesn't even make sense when renewables could work alongside nuclear energy. Bad vibes, bad plan, F tier. The Greens live up to their name when it comes to environmental policy with a huge list of ways they want to protect the environment, the most notable being protecting koala habitats, introducing climate triggers, and creating new environmental protection authorities. All of these sound awesome. You wouldn't be able to get every single one of them through, but you could probably get a lot of them through and it would benefit the country and the environment dramatically. S tier. It's time to fearmonger about crime statistics. We're talking about law and order. Labour is throwing money at the illegal tobacco issue, hoping it can do anything aside from lower the tax excise. I just did a whole video on this. This is going to be nothing. It's so complicated and it came from government greed. F tier. Liberals want police to stop and search youth in the street with handheld metal detectors and restrict the sale of knives to minors and dangerous individuals. Dutton also wants to clamp down on weak bail laws and criminalize posting material on social media that glorifies crime or illegal activity to increase notoriety. These stop and search laws come from Queensland after a young man named Jack Beasley was stabbed to death. It has been relatively successful in Queensland, with New South Wales also implementing the laws. I have obvious concerns about who the police would be stopping and searching, but I don't have time to get into that. Additionally, knife crime has already been on a downward trend, but it is the most common weapon used in homicides. All in all, I'll give the Liberals a C tier. The Greens seem to be the only party that thinks sending children to prison is a bad idea, wanting to increase the age of criminal responsibility to 14 nationally and make anyone under 16 ineligible for a custodial sentence. They want greater funding for community programs to focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration, etc., etc. Some of these feel more like goals than they do policies. I also have my own reservations about allowing anyone under the age of 16 out of the prison system, but at the end of the day, I'm a big proponent in rehabilitation and the Greens are on the right path. Right vibes, good ideas, execution worries me a little, B tier. Now it's time for mental health policy. Labour is spending a lot, couple $100 million here, there, and everywhere. Increase access to services and increase training. One particular goal is creating an online mental health service for less severe presentations. People would get up to 10 sessions with a counsellor or social worker. I'll give Labour a B tier because it's heading in the right direction, but I think a lot could be improved. The Liberals are all about quantity over quality, bringing back the 20-session Medicare subsidy from the COVID years. We're also getting a couple $100 million into youth mental health services, which is really good. You can say what you want about the Liberals, they're actually pretty good on mental health. Now, does increasing the number of Medicare sessions actually help? The jury's still out. People did access services more frequently, but they didn't often use more than 10 sessions. Hey, extra funding is great, no complaints from me. I'm gonna give the Liberals a B tier just below Labour. I think they need to widen their net a little bit. The Greens want mental health to be entirely covered by Medicare, as well as make it so ADHD and autism diagnoses are covered by Medicare. Now, funding-wise, we go back to the corporations issue, but getting ADHD and autism diagnoses covered by Medicare would be invaluable. I'm not sure they could make all mental health services free, but they definitely could get testing on Medicare, and they're already in favor of increasing the Medicare rebate and boosting access to services, so they do it where they could. Good vibes, good direction. There's a good chance to make a lot of it happen, or at least make things better. B tier above Labour. It's time to learn about education policy. The HECS help repayment threshold has increased to $67,000. They're cutting the student debt by 20% and are doubling incentive payments for apprentices. The threshold increase is awesome. Cutting 20% is nice, but as discussed before, it doesn't really fix the issue. But Labour did already change debt indexation from the CPI to the WPI, so it's in line with wages. No complaints about increasing subsidies. All in all, good vibes, practically possible. Labour gets an A tier. The coalition wants to reach a target of 400,000 apprentices and trainees through incentive payments. Small and medium businesses would receive $12,000 to put on new apprentices. The coalition has also gone on a mission against wokeness in schools though. Dutton's just doing this Trumpian style rhetoric. It's kind of boring to see. Incentives good, Trumpian diarrhea bad, C tier. The Greens want to wipe all student debt, bring back free TAFE and university, and make high quality childcare and early education free. Corporations, tax avoidance, yada yada. There's a reason we don't have free education anymore. It isn't because the government hates us, it's because unfortunately things cost money, budgets exist for a reason. I like the vibe, it'd be an awesome direction to head in, but it's just not practically or reasonably possible. C tier above the Liberals. Where do our tax dollars go? Apparently to 40,000 new government hires. We're talking about government services. Labour hasn't really said anything specifically, there's nothing much to rate here. They intend to add around 3,400 public service jobs, which means they would have created 40,000 jobs since coming into power. Public service jobs create good and stable work for workers. As long as there's projects that actually need manpower to be worked on, it's good for the country. No complaints from me. A tier. Inversely, the Liberals want to cut 41,000 public service jobs by 2030. We don't know how, we don't know where. Dutton has also rallied against public service jobs working from home, but backed down because it receives so much backlash. Not to harp on the Dutton-Trump comparisons, because Trump is infinitely worse than Peter Dutton, but he tried to do this Trumpian-style rhetoric here. It failed. It was uncomfortable. F tier. The Greens want to increase the number of Centrelink staffers to ensure people are waiting less and getting better support. They want to fund essential social services and assist those in poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, and other challenges. Nothing too specific, generally attainable, pretty reasonable. The vibes are nice. We'll throw it in A tier. We're on to gambling. Who doesn't love a punt? Probably the families and Aussies affected by the gambling epidemic. Labour hasn't really said anything when it comes to gambling, but omission of policy is just as bad as supporting the status quo. F tier. The Liberals want to ban gambling advertising 1 hour before, during, and after live sporting events and streaming services. Could this go a lot further? Absolutely. Is it an amazing step in the right direction? Definitely. A tier. The Greens want to establish a national independent gambling regulator, ban all gambling advertising across TV, radio, and online media, as well as get gambling donations out of politics. It will be an incredible uphill battle, but all of these are vital to protecting young Australians, and they are very feasible. Great vibes, S tier policy. Everyone hates Coles and Woolies, but we're also too lazy to shop at Aldi. We're on to the supermarkets. Labour want to make price gouging illegal by establishing a task force to set standards for measuring excessive pricing, which will be policed by a competition watchdog. They also plan to develop a $3 million education program to help suppliers negotiate better deals. I like the sound of that. Seems pretty feasible. It's a little bit wishy-washy. I'll put it in B tier. The coalition wants to create breakup powers as a code red tool that would force Coles and Woolies to sell off parts of their business like the alcohol branch if they were found to be abusing their power. Pretty based, honestly. A tier. Big companies should be scared that if there isn't enough competition, the government will make it happen. The Greens also want to make price gouging illegal. They want to establish a price commission to examine and monitor prices, introduce new price gouging laws and divestment powers similar to the coalition, and add 20 full-time jobs to the ACCC to investigate referrals from price commissions and implement the divestiture powers to break up duopolies and stop price gouging. It's a nice mix of both, honestly. A tier. Labour hasn't announced anything particularly new when it comes to defence other than their continuing commitment to AUKUS. Alright vibes, plans are slowly becoming scarier to commit to. B tier. When it comes to the coalition, they're big on jets this time around, spending a few billion to buy some more. Dutton has also alluded to significant funding commitments to be announced sometime in the future. I think it's good we buy things to defend ourselves. B tier. Move over, Trump. You are no longer our best friend. The Greens want to step away from AUKUS and cancel purchases for some tanks and helicopters. The Greens want to reinvest these funds into moderate defense spending that isn't reliant on other countries. I generally like the vibe, but I think the Greens are a little bit too intense when it comes to pushing away the US. I'll put them in C tier. Maybe one day the NBN will be everything we hoped it to be, but today is not that day. It's time for internet policy. Labour wants to pump $3 billion into the NBN to give higher internet speeds to around 622,000 additional premises by the end of the decade. It would supposedly mean 94% of homes would have access to speeds of up to 1 gigabyte per second. If they can do it, that's fire. S tier. The coalition plans to do the exact same. No complaints from me. The NBN has a pretty complicated history. Who knows if it can actually get done? A tier. I trust them a little bit less than I do Labour. Couldn't really find anything specific about the Greens. I can infer they're pretty much going to do exactly what the other two parties are doing. They might even improve it slightly. I'm going to put them A tier above the Liberals. Oh look, it's us. Time to talk about social media. Labour will continue working on their age gate plan since it banned anyone under the age of 16 accessing social media. Labour also wants to find a way to compel social media companies to strike commercial deals with news organizations to support journalism. Social media sites would be charged for hosting news, which could be offset if they strike a deal directly with the news organization. No idea how they're actually going to pull this off. We'll throw it in B tier. The coalition wants to make it an offense to post material that glamorizes violence, as spoken about earlier. They also supported the banning of social media for children under the age of 16. B tier behind Labour. The Greens want huge protections for online data and content. It all sounds pretty awesome, and it would place us at the forefront of online safety, right beside the EU. I'm not sure we'd actually be able to get it done. It's relatively complicated, but I like the direction they want to take us. A tier. All in all, Labour had 1 S tier policy, 3 A tier policies, 7 B tier policies, 0 C tier policies, and 2 F tier policies. The coalition had 0 S tier policies, 3 A tier policies, 4 B tier policies, 3 C tier policies, and 3 F tier policies. The Greens had 2 S tier policies, 4 A tier policies, 5 B tier policies, 2 C tier policies, and 0 F tier policies. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with the policies this year. Make sure you're enrolled to vote, make sure you know who your member is, and importantly, don't let anyone lie to you. We have a preferential voting system. You can put minor parties ahead of the major parties with no fear whatsoever. Your vote will still count, your votes will still trickle down. There is no harm in supporting a minor party if they connect with your beliefs more. Me personally, I still don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I'm a big Labour guy, but the Greens have surprised me this time around. I'm feeling I'm connecting with their policies a little bit more. I might put them as my number 1 and Labour as my number 2. I'll let you guys know if I figure that out. Come join the Discord, come talk about it, come say hi, come let me know what you think in the comments, check out the TikTok, check out the other videos, like and subscribe. It's been real.